To call the City Council and the Loma Housing Authority to order. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Councilman Duper.
Present.
Councilman Daly.
Here.
Councilman Brower.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tempore Popescu.
Here.
And Mayor Rigsby.
Here.
All present.
Thank you. We have a closed session report for both the City Council and the Housing Authority.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the City Council agenda, item C was a closed session conference with real property negotiator. Council met and conferred with the representatives for the city, gave direction. There's no action to report. On the Housing Authority agenda, there was also a closed session. That was a conference regarding existing litigation. There was a report given regarding the case listed, which did go to trial last week, and the court ruled in favor of the Housing Authority and the city in that case. There's no other action to report.
Thank you. We'll proceed to the invocation and pledge of allegiance. Mayor Pro Tempore Popescu.
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to once again meet here in this wonderful town and this wonderful country. We thank you for all the blessings you bestowed upon us. We ask that you continue to guide us and protect us and help us to deliberate and do what's best for the city. In Jesus' name, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any items to be added or deleted to either agenda?
No, sir.
Okay. Next is time for the public to speak on any item not on the agenda. If you've got something to get off your chest, now's your opportunity. Okay. No takers. We'll go on to conflict of interest. I believe that will be dealt with item 10. Maybe other issues. We'll deal with them as they come up. We'll go to our joint public hearing, City Council and Housing Authority, pertaining to sale of properties. Madam Clerk.
This item is very similar to the item that you ruled on a few weeks ago. Both properties are currently owned by the Loma Housing Authority. As you may recall, any sale of housing properties was negatively impacted by the passing of the 2011 Dissolution Act. And so that prevented the redevelopment agency at the time from entering into any agreements. So some of these sales have been postponed since that time. The Housing Authority assumed the housing assets of the former redevelopment agency. There are two houses that we have new buyers for. One of the houses is located in the Parkside Homes development, and that development consists of 58 single-family units, of which 35 have the long-term affordability covenants that run with the land. And the current period of time is 45 years. The other property is on Court Street, and that was an infill project. Remember, we did a number of manufactured homes on permanent foundations on single-family lots. So this is one of those. Again, that covenant also runs for 45 years. The parties have signed their agreement that they wish to proceed. The financing mechanism is by the Housing Authority, and it is per prior direction given. So the sale of both properties would provide the authority with funding to maintain and to preserve its supply of affordable housing, and would allow qualified persons and families to become homeowners. So we are asking that the City Council adopt the resolutions and also the Housing Authority to proceed with the sale of both properties. In the agenda is a summary report for both that we have prepared pursuant to former redevelopment law, because as the housing authority, some of the rules still have not been applied. So that is my report. I'll be ready to respond to any questions you may have.
I'm just not seeing the actual resolutions in my agenda. I see a summary.
I'm not either. I just have the summary.
They may be included in the portion that's the housing authority in the back of your packet.
Okay.
Yeah, it's tab 1.
Yes, I see. Out of curiosity, the first property, how long were the prior owners in possession of it before it went back to the agency?
On the Portola Loop property, that was a I should put it, I guess, a repossession
Yeah, okay.
case from the original owner.
Uh-huh.
The redevelopment agency then purchased it from the
Bank.
new buyer who had gotten it on auction. And he was an investor, so it would not have complied with the CC&Rs. He was a very willing investor, and he turned the property over to us.
And we purchased it for the same amount that we're selling it for?
Actually, I believe it was less. I'd have to go back in the records, but
Okay.
both houses have been rehabilitated, the normal thing that we would do before resale.
I want to make a motion to move it. No, sorry.
Yeah, we have to. I have a question of our city attorney. I know this is probably not your field since we have a special counsel. Why is it that the 45 years don't tick down each time that you resell it? Why does it always start over again?
You're right. That's not something I've ever thought about, but logically I would say that when you record a new covenant, I think the requirement is that it be for a certain period of time, so it's a new covenant with each new buyer.
So if nobody lasts 45 years, it never is extinguished?
Apparently not.
Unless, of course, the state does something rash, which they never do. Okay, any other questions of staff? Okay, then we'll open the public hearing. Public, this is your chance. Come on down, make a comment. No takers. Okay, we'll close the public hearing. What's the pleasure of the council and housing authority?
My question was, can we move them all together, or we have to take them individual?
Well, they're separate properties, so I would recommend 1A and B together, and then C and D separately.
Okay. I will move Housing Authority Bill R 2012-09 and Council Bill R 2012-25 for the sale, authorizing and consenting the sale of the Portola Loop property.
I'll go ahead and second that.
Okay, any other comment? No discussion. Is there any opposition to the motion? Hearing none, it's approved. What's your pleasure on C and D?
I'll go ahead and move item C and D on item number 1 on our agenda, which is Bill Loma Linda Housing Authority Bill R-2012-10 and Council Bill R-2012-33, authorizing the sale of 24966 Court Street to the parties involved.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Any opposition? Hearing none, it's approved. Okay, we move to item number 2, public hearing, approving the annual report and assessments for landscape maintenance, Public Works.
I have Jeff Peterson to present this items.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of council. This is our annual hearing for the second reading of the Landscape Maintenance District, Council Bill R 2012-30. You have the reports from the engineer that was prepared by Wildan Financial Associates. This is the typical and annual opportunity to protest, etc. We haven't received any comments on this. If you have any questions, feel free.
2 questions. Go ahead, Dr. Daly.
Oh, go ahead. You start.
Are the residents notified of the fact that they're going through this assessment on a yearly basis?
They are notified through the typical posting process.
Okay, so they don't actually get a letter in the mail. They're just made aware of the fact.
Correct.
Okay. And I'm having a hard time I was looking at the report. Is the assessment increasing compared to the prior year?
Not on all parcels. There are some that go up and some that go down and some that remain the same.
Okay. And those is going to be reflected in their tax bill?
Correct. They have the opportunity to pay up front. I believe they have 30 or 60 days, and then it rolls over to the tax bills.
Okay. And I noticed there's the discrepancy between the amount that we get from the residents and the cost, so therefore we take money out of the general fund. Has that been a practice every year?
Yes, it has. Unfortunately, the first 50 annexations did not include a CPI adjustment.
I see. And that's the reason why we're...
Correct.
Okay. All right.
However, we are working diligently to reduce that each and every year, and we're doing that by reducing mostly our utilities, and that is happening through lessening the amount of turf area and going to a less water need.
And
yes, you will be seeing more hardscape in the
and
near future.
the amount that we're collecting basically helps maintain the landscaping within this district.
Correct.
So if there's a lack of maintenance, it would be because just timing or not lack of funding or anything like that.
Kind of both, because
Okay.
yes, because we're short on the LMD, and I try not to use a lot of money from general fund
Okay.
to spend on the LMD. So there will be less planting. There will be less to replace the planting in that area, or reduce the amount of water irrigation.
So the amount that we have budgeted as expenditures is not enough to actually cover the existing facilities?
Correct.
Okay.
So a lot of time, if we use the city staff to offset that, and with the layoff, is make it even more difficult, or eliminate the position.
I was just curious, what is hardscaping? Can you describe that?
We can put in we remove some landscaping on the Parkway, on Mountain View, between Huron to Beaumont, see those shrubs, and put some decomposed granite and some rock, similar to what I plan to do on the freeway off-ramp.
Is like the one-time cost, it's a cost-effective to do that?
Oh, yes, we save a lot of money for maintaining, mowing the lawn, trimming the bushes, to just placing the rocks down. And water, too, water.
Just to be sure I understand this on a conceptual level, these assessments help cover the cost of maintaining those medians and so forth that have plants in them. And I'm still I didn't quite understand your answer to Councilman Popescu's query about why is there the differential between the... So let me ask you just a series of quick questions and to tell you where I'm going from. I'm interested to know who sets those fees and how often they're reviewed, and are we concerned about the $78,000 differential between what we're collecting and what it's costing us? Because one way to address it, it sounds like, is to put in hardscape. Maybe another way would be to increase the assessment fee.
Those original incorporated
Yes, to increase the fee is a tax, so you have to go back to the voter to vote on it. It's as part of 218.
Correct. Our first 50 did not have a COLA in them. So those first 50 areas, the only way to increase them is to go back to those areas and request that through a vote.
And it's those first 50 that are creating most of the shortage that we have in funding.
That's true.
So when we're talking about adding hardscape, we're talking about those specific areas.
Yes. And the more we do, the better for overall anyway, so, yes.
No, and I understand that, but there's an aesthetic
Yes.
issue, I think, that warrants some discussion in that as well. We're not talking about any of the Barton Road.
No, sir. No, sir.
Okay.
Was it just those 50 areas that you're doing hardscape? No,
No,
you're
no,
doing
no,
it
no.
anywhere.
No, I'm just starting right now on Mountain View because of the flood that we had in 2010. There's still mud and dirt in those landscape areas, so it's easy to clean them up.
Yeah.
So we're doing those as a pilot area?
Yes. And no, we still like the lawn.
Yeah, well, some of us do, but we realize that conservation is an important priority as well. But I think the discussion of how to balance those two priorities is an important one to sustain. Okay, thank you. No?
Any other questions for staff? Okay, then we'll open the public hearing for this one. This is your chance again. You'll have a couple more chances, but the chances are winding down. Okay, no public comment coming forward. Close the public hearing. What's your pleasure on Council Bill R-2012-30?
I will make a motion to support Council Bill R-2012-30.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Any opposition? Hearing none, it's approved. We move to item number 3, public hearing on approval of the annual report and assessment for Street Light Benefit Assessment District.
This is very similar to the last one we just spoke about, R-2012-31. It has to do with streetlights that we have throughout the city. It's very similar in nature, although I believe this one is balanced. There is the efforts ongoing to reduce energy costs. We have a pilot program currently that we are evaluating as far as the use of LEDs, which use a substantial less amount of energy, which helps our streetlight maintenance district substantially, and we are continuing to evaluate that. This one also does not require the ballot measure, the individual notification.
I guess two questions. First, again, I guess the same question regarding the differential between what we collect in assessments and the cost of sustaining this. What's...
Well, this one I believe is in balance. I think we actually have a, no, not this one?
No,
Anticipated
deficit, is it deficit, but because we have a fund balance in the account, so we just draw that down. But because what we try to do is reduce the energy consumption, Edison bill. So my goal is eventually we reduce that so that it become balanced.
So the savings from the
Electricity.
new lights
Yes.
will balance that?
Yes.
Okay.
Hopefully before the fund balance goes to zero.
What's that?
Before the fund balance goes to zero. is
Yeah,
our
okay, well, that
goal.
would be good, yeah. And what's the current timetable on the new strategy for energy-saving bulbs?
Well, we want to wait till about a year after we install the LED light on Redlands Boulevard, and we will do a comparison and be happy to come back and report it to you.
Okay,
We keep
so
track
we're
of
not going
that.
to install any more for another year?
Yes. The reason we did that is because we received a grant for it,
Okay,
grant funding for those LED
Okay.
light.
okay. Thank you.
My quick question, I know that recently we've had some issues with wire theft. Has that in any way impacted this district?
Oh, yes.
So when you take these assessments, do they take into account some of the maintenance required in case that happens?
What we usually do is we use the general fund, which is Public Works Street Maintenance Fund,
Okay.
to repair the street light
So-
wires. And now, instead of the wires, now they're stealing the backflow device for the irrigation. That's why when you drive down Beaumont or Whittier, you see some brown spot. It's because they've been stealing the backflow device from the irrigation system.
Thank you.
Any other? No, we need to do a public hearing first. Okay, if there are no more questions for for the staff. Then we'll open the public hearing. One more chance. Public, anybody passionate about lights? Okay, hearing none, we'll close the public hearing, and it's time for a motion.
Well, sensing a lack of energy, I will move. Council Bill R. 2-12-31, approving annual report and assessments for streetlight benefit assessment.
Have enough energy for a second?
Okay, any further discussion? Any opposition? Hearing none, that's approved. Next is item 4, council bill establishing maximum refuse collection and disposal rates effective July 1.
Honorable Mayor,
Mr. Public Works.
members of the council, you may have noticed a common denominator here. It has to do with financing and for running the public works. This one, however, is for the refuse increase due to the CPI. We have a new franchise agreement which began toward the end of 2008, and in that agreement, it's allowed for the hauler to approach us for a request to increase or decrease their rates based on the consumer price index for the last year. That index is slightly over 2%. They made the request, we honored it, we bring it forward to the council. Part of this is to notify everyone in the city concerning this, so we sent out over 5,000 notifications to the individual property owners, etc. We received back about 24 of them that were undeliverable. That notification allows people to identify themselves and protest. We received 8 letters of protest, which is substantially less than the 50% plus one. So this one has to do with raising the refuse rates based on the CPI and the waste disposal agreement that we have with the county, where we take the refuse to the landfill. And the average homeowner that you all will experience is approximately 45 cents a month increase, a little less than $1 on your bi-monthly bill. Those with a 3-yard bin that gets emptied once a week, the fourplexes and that type, theirs goes up about $5 every 2 months, or about $2.50 per month. We have since turned over the commercial billing to the hauler through an agreement, so they now have the responsibility of doing the billing, and they do that on a monthly basis for our commercial sector as well. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
How do our rates compare to other communities in the surrounding area?
Very competitive and favorable. As you know, the rates here are about $17, $18 a month, $34 every 2 months. And I happen to live next door in Colton, and it's about the same, a little bit higher.
Just a question on Exhibit A, the additional service. There's mention of a bulky item pickup, 2 free unlimited pickups per calendar year. Any information for residents about that? Because I doubt many people know what the process is and what's available on that item.
Yes, we usually do that when on your utility bills. We put that message in there that said you have option to call Republics twice a year, and they will come pick it up. What we did in the previous year was we sent a letter to everybody and said, okay, certain day there will be a large item pickup in front of your house, and it's overwhelming the hauler, and we have people that come by and pick up the scrap from your front yard, and so we decided to do by phone call. It's easier for the hauler.
So there's no set time?
No, sir.
Anyone can do it 2 times during a calendar year?
Yes, you can just call them up, and they will come by and pick it up.
Okay, any other questions? I just wanted to make a comment that 5 years ago our rates were about 10% to 15% higher than they currently are. Our rates have actually come down, came down about 20% in 2008. So we're significantly better off than we were before, and that was because of some tense negotiations that we had.
The new franchise was very beneficial to our residents as well as our businesses. Additionally, they handle the reporting to the state as far as our diversion. We're at 60% or better for our diversion. We are in compliance, and that was much helped by the new franchise agreement.
Yeah.
They've been very proactive.
If anybody's listening, this is a good time to just remind all residents that if they do have recyclable items, to go ahead and try to put those in the recycle bin, especially the plastic and the paper and those things, because it does help for us to meet our requirements with the state.
Absolutely, and for those that are in the multifamily, we have a large bin in the public parking lot here at City Hall.
Just another comment on that, too, is that you can get an extra recycling bin for free if you choose to. That's in here. So if you separate your stuff out and you have quite a lot of trash and you're very good at separating, then you can actually have 2 recycle carts that they'll pick up.
Okay, any other questions of staff? If not, then I'll open the public hearing, and we do have someone who wants to speak. I have a request from Dr. Okwandu.
Good evening, gentlemen and ladies. I do appreciate the work you people are doing in Loma Linda to keep the place quite clean and very friendly. I'm glad to see Dr. Stan still in the council hall here. For so many years, I've known him. He doesn't know me, but I do. The issue I had was with the increase in the waste disposal rate. We've had the unit that we have on Canada Street since December of 1994, and I've seen the increases in the rates. And I have also watched the income of property owners in that particular area drop very significantly because of the new buildings that have come up in Loma Linda, particularly the one on Poplar Street. I used to live there before I left there in 1989. Those tenants that we would have had over there in the campus are now going to the new buildings that have better amenities. So it has affected our occupancy rates in the apartments that are over there on Canada Street, Rincon, and some of them along Stewart. So our occupancy rate is really very low. For the past 2 years, I've had just 2 units occupied, even though that I've dropped my rent. It used to be like $750. Now I have only $500 just to attract students. They're the only ones I rent to. So every 2 months, I get a bill for $340-something for just waste disposal and water and sewer. It takes a chunk out for somebody who is on a fixed income. I have to make the mortgage payment on a property value that is low, and the mortgage on the property is way up there, and you cannot refinance it because the loan to value is so high, even though the interest rates are so low. That's why so many people are leaving the properties now and say, hey, what am I paying for when it's not worth the building? But I'm not in that type of group. I would like to keep that property because I have children that are going to school here that I want to stay there. So I would suggest that you kindly look into the issue. Most of us have gone under austerity measures now just to keep the head above the waters because of all the loans and things that cannot be refinanced on properties. So I would suggest that you please look at this issue critically, and if it is possible, postpone it for 1 more year. I'll be here to advocate for increase after 1 year, But we are barely making it now. It's not that easy. Most of our patients are unemployed, no more insurance, health insurance, and so we are taking care of them almost for free in our clinics in the high desert. So it's kind of rough.
Can I ask you,
Yes.
sir, can I ask you a question? What, your current service level, if you have less tenants, can you change your service level to a lower service? Less pickups, smaller bins?
You never know. When the apartment come up with a bigger bed, you don't know when the tenant's there, when it's not there. So if you charge them with a lower rate, and then you have new tenant moving in, we don't know.
Yeah, but can you get like a smaller bin that's maybe not as filled up as
The problem
much?
over there is that so many of the tenants, when their own bin is full, they'll just go to the other neighbors wherever they find something to a space, and they'll put there.
So they're using the bins that you have now.
So
Full.
even if we have a smaller one or a bigger one, every person puts their trash anywhere. Now, when you talk
Including the ones that aren't yours, is
yes,
what you're saying.
yes. In fact, I had to specifically request a trash bin for my units after I discovered that the city was billing for both units, and those people were not paying because there was no one there. And I didn't even know who the landlord was until the city came and made it mandatory that the owner has to show up. So I had to come down here to discuss the issue with them. I told them I can't be paying for 2 bins. I keep getting this bill for 2 buildings. It's not right. So they had to give me one trash bin.
So you're paying for one bin.
Yeah. And I saw the rate drop immediately. So I was for years paying for 2 buildings instead of one. But they corrected it. Now what I'm saying is, somebody mentioned about recycling bins. It might be very beneficial if a white recycling bin or whatever it is dropped one for the whole apartments over there, so that people just don't put everything in that green trash can.
I don't know how the commercial
Right
stuff
now,
works with recycling.
that's the only
I don't
thing that
see-
which makes it overflow at the end of each week. If we did that, then they could pick it up once every 2 weeks.
So is your apartment a duplex or a
It's a fourplex.
fourplex? Okay, so fourplex is not a big bin. The fourplex is still smaller, just similar to a residential.
Right, I requested
Right.
specifically for that, but
You only have a
before
small-
that time, we had the big that was having 2 units, 2 8-unit apartments. So if you send us a recycling bin, we definitely can separate the recyclable items from the greens, and it will help to reduce the green bin from filling so fast, which is the reason why we have to have it picked up once every week, because it overflows.
Is pick up once a week everywhere.
Right,
anyway.
right. If we had them separated, then all the recyclable things will stay in the recycling.
No, sir, we still come by every week to pick it up.
You'll still pick it
yes,
up once a
the
week.
trash pickup is once a week.
Okay. Well, somebody
Yeah,
was
they don't. It
suggesting
doesn't look like they
reduction.
have any great deals for recycling in the commercial sector. That was only offered on the residential side.
But anyway, thank you so much for allowing me to come by. It's good to see your faces.
Okay, is there anyone else from the public who would like to speak? Yes, we have one taker.
Tikwale Loma, Linda. As a question, along the same lines that he was talking about, in the commercial, you dump everything in there and they'll sort it at the transition point. The question I don't know if you've got the answer for, but of all this that they pick up, what does the recycling value, what do they get back out of it? And how does that apply to the cost? Because if I buy soda bottles or cans, I mean, I see this constantly down there. I tried to suggest at our place, can you give us a bin that we can put these in so that we can turn them in? Or we'll charge you to pick it up. And we'll charge you more than you're going to get out of the bin. So it's not worth you doing it. Well, if we don't get it, they're getting it. So what I'm saying is, what's the factor of what they get in the way of recycle, and how does that apply to the cost, if they do have
Probably.
that?
I think it's impossible for us to know because we
Well,
would
we
know.
do. Because you want to answer that question? Because the law required that we had to recycle 60%. So even though some people throw a recycle item in the trash, they're still sent to the MRF, which is the place that they separate the trash and the recyclable at their facility. And that is part of their revenue that's subtract off from our fee, our rate. Yeah, we have to, because it's part of the state, yes.
We get monthly reports on the various recyclables. The recyclables that they move are based on their commodities, and the rates that they get for those fluctuate. Most of the time, they get some money out of it. There are times when the rate is so low that they don't, and they store it. And because they have figured this out, they did a trash study to find out what kind of commodities they are able to get it out, and when they bid on the franchise, that was reflected in their bid. They were able to give us the much cheaper than before because they knew that there was a certain amount of commodity that they would be able to pull out of our waste stream.
And again, like the mayor said, our rate actually decreased 4 years ago. So.
Okay, any other comments from the public? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. What's the pleasure of the council?
I'll go ahead and move Council Bill R 2012-32, establishing maximum refuse collection and disposable rates effective July 1st, 2012.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Okay, is there any opposition? Hearing none, it's approved. It's a modest increase and was figured into the original bid, I imagine. Okay, moving on to the consent calendar. We have several items. What's your pleasure?
I can move the consent calendar. I just had a quick question on the demands register.
Go ahead.
I'm just noticing there's a number of requests for the flex medical reimbursement. How does that work?
The flex medical reimbursement is it's a deduction that the employees sign up for at the beginning of the year, where they can defer a portion of their pay into this flex medical spending account. And then they submit, once they go for doctor's visits or medication, they can submit those items for reimbursement. And that gets reimbursed out of their account.
So basically, this is us paying them back for their medical expenses.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And if they fail to submit bills to match what they've had deducted, the extra goes to the city, right?
Correct.
Yeah. In order to get the tax deduction on their part, they have to risk the entire thing. So there was a motion. Is there a second for the consent calendar? Okay. Is there any further discussion? Any opposition? Hearing none, it's approved. We'll move to old business number 9, Council Bill O-2012-01. This is a second reading and roll call vote amending the zoning map for a multifamily from multifamily residence to institutional, corner of Orange and New Jersey. Community development. Any comment? No further commentary? This is the
Nothing new
project.
there.
This is the
This is the memory care
Memory care
facility,
facility,
Orange,
yes.
New Jersey, yes.
So the appropriate motion, I believe, would be to move the second reading and call for a roll call vote and something about name only. Help us. We'll never get this figured out.
The motion would be to waive the council bill in its entirety, direct me to read by title only, and then adopt by roll call vote.
So moved.
I think we need a script. Okay, so that's the motion. Now, do we vote on this motion and then have the roll call vote, or does this set in motion the roll call vote?
Yes, that script is here, actually. But
Oh, it is.
yes, the motion, as stated, includes those three items, and then you will vote by roll call vote.
So the ordinance is entitled, An Ordinance of the City Council of the City of Loma Linda, amending the official zoning map of the City of Loma Linda from multifamily residence R3 to institutional for parcel located at 11116 New Jersey Street. It is zone change number 11-166, and you may vote.
Have you voted?
All righty. Passes unanimously.
Okay.
I had a question on this item. I know by law we're allowed to amend the general plan 4 times. Do we happen to know how many times we've amended it so far?
This is a zoning map.
No, but we are changing the general plan. It's a general plan amendment.
I'm not sure.
And, well, we may want to keep track of that so we don't find ourselves amending it too many times and running into jeopardy.
At this point, I'm not sure.
Okay. And then the other question is it through calendar year or fiscal year?
I believe it's calendar.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, item 10, I will turn over to Mayor Pro Tempore Popescu. Because I have a conflict of interest, self-declared.
Okay. So item number 10 is a demands register where the vendor is just Loma University, which was pulled out from our original demands register. Do I hear a motion?
I'll move it.
We had 3 of the council who would participate on this item. We previously drew straws.
I thought I was the only
No.
one.
He just personally, individually decided that he wanted to conflict himself out.
It was your advice that I do not need to recuse myself, but I've decided to anyway in honor of a councilman from a neighboring city who was prosecuted.
Yes, and I think later we did go ahead and draw straws on this.
I don't think so, no. He just decided on every item in the demands register that he would recuse himself, and we were comfortable with not having to do so.
I could be wrong.
Well, what is your counsel, since the mayor's pulling out to avoid any risk of legal problems, where does that leave the rest of us? I mean, I just assume if that's your judgment, then I just assume draw straws and make a decision.
Remind me, Pam, am I on that?
I think because the amounts were so minimal that we left the choice up to the individual council members.
Well,
That's correct.
previously, it was items that were already paid.
Yeah.
But there came a time where it wasn't clear whether that was always the case. And I'm sorry, I was under the impression that we had drawn straws on that at some point in the past. But and that was in an abundance of caution. These demands registers, we're basically approving the register of what's been paid previously, so it's not the same as the other type of action. But the expenditures, if there were ever a case where we were entering into a contract for certain services, that is where we would want to go through the formal procedure. So my impression previously had been that it was not required. When the mayor became concerned, perhaps in an abundance of caution, it would be appropriate at some point to go ahead and formalize that action, if we haven't already done so. But Pam's memory is usually better than mine. If we haven't done that, we might.
But I think you summarized it well. That's basically what we had decided,
Yes.
and I think, I'm not sure if what you mean by formalizing it. We decided to pull the items related to the university, so it would be easier for him to recuse himself. And
Yes.
it was up to us individually to decide whether we needed to. But you summarized it well. If it's a new contract in which we're going to be expending money, then yeah, we would require the drawing of straws. In this case, it doesn't apply.
With reference to that, backing up my decision, the prosecution of the neighboring city councilman was for expenditures already made in a consent calendar. So he was prosecuted.
Yeah, it just happened to go to his own business rather than an employer that has a $1.5 billion budget, and this is all of $1,000. But anyway, it's up to you to decide.
I don't like my future being determined by how much the DA likes me.
Well, what we can do is, at the next meeting, we can draw a straw and for this item.
Yeah, we will have to draw straws again because of the change in council, and probably at that time would be appropriate, just in an abundance of caution, to do a straw for this item as well, and then we don't ever have to worry or concern ourselves with it, and Pam can make a note in the minutes.
Go ahead, Dr. Brower.
In all the years, I always hoped maybe we could do something new or interesting, like draw cards or roll dice for these things, but somehow drawing straws for probability is considered kosher. I've never quite understood the distinction, but it's a concept that is interesting to me, that certain forms of probability determination are acceptable and others not.
Well, there's no legal distinction. We certainly could have rolled dice if that had been the council's preference.
If we ever have to flip a coin, I'm betting on you.
Anyway, do I hear a motion on this item?
I'll move it.
Is no one planning on seconding the motion? Yeah. Thank you. Anybody in opposition? Hearing none, is so moved. Thank you.
Okay, are there any reports of councilmen?
Make a comment on that. So, just moved into my new house, and trash day's on Wednesday. But with the holiday a couple weeks ago, everybody on the block put out their trash cans on Tuesday night, which is what they're supposed to do. And of course, trash was not picked up on Wednesday. It was picked up on Thursday. Yet, I still received a letter from the Homeowners Association chastising me for leaving my trash cans out an extra day.
And you want us to do what about that?
Just saying, sometimes there's a valid reason.
My advice is never join a homeowners association. They have powers beyond that delegated to the federal, state, and local governments. Extra-constitutional confiscatory powers. Okay, any other councilmen? Okay, any reports of officers? Okay, then the city council is adjourned. Now we'll complete the agenda for the housing authority. We have a consent calendar.
I'll move it.
Was that a motion to move it?
That was a motion.
I'll
Yes.
second.
Okay, any further discussion? Any opposition? Hearing none, it's approved. Are there any chair or board member reports? Any reports of officers? Okay, then we're adjourned for that one. We've got 2 more meetings. That was the Housing Authority. Now we're going to the successor agency. Are there any items to be added or deleted?
Sir.
Public, you get another chance to speak on any items not on the agenda. There's not much on the agenda, so if you want to speak, this is your chance. Seeing no takers, we'll go to consent calendar.
Is there something in Robert's rules? I don't know if I can make a motion to move that because I wasn't here.
Yes, you can. Minutes can be approved by a body in which nobody attended the prior meeting.
Then I will move it for you.
I'll second it. And I had a question after we approve it.
Okay, there's a second. Is there any further discussion on the item? Any opposition? Hearing none, it's approved. What is your question?
Is there an update as to what is the status of our challenge to the Departments of Finance rejection of some of our ROPs?
Not a reply back from them. As of now, they will be distributing the ROP amounts minus whatever they've questioned. There's still some minor ones that we're looking at as far as agreements to be able to provide the documentation to them on. The submission of we recently approved we approved the loans agreement, so we're going to send those in and update the ROP to, we included them, but they want an updated ROP.
So those minor amounts are the amounts that the comp controller is going to withhold from us?
Yes. At this point, they will withhold from us.
Are they being placed in some sort of an escrow account so when those items gets resolved, we get the money back? Because my understanding is that sometimes the comp controller would actually send it out to the various agencies, and then we're going to have to start looking for that money ourselves with those agencies.
I'm not sure about how that will function. I think if they approve it, we might get it on the next disbursement.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, the redevelopment agency successor agency is adjourned. Now we'll go to our annual meeting of the Loma Linda Public Financing Authority. Are there any items to be added or deleted?
No, sir.
Does the public wish to speak on any item other than the minutes, which is the entire agenda? Okay, no takers. What's your pleasure on the minutes?
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion about it? Any opposition? Hearing none's approved. We're adjourned. Thank you very much.
Until the next meeting, which is July.
Next meeting is July 10, which is our reorganization meeting.
And